Hey, it's Jason from Bohemia Bees, and today we're going to share with you what we do here on the Eastern Shore of Maryland to prevent swarming in early spring. Stay tuned. Okay, so you've got a colony that came through winter, overwintered, and you've inspected it and you've seen a lot of bee volume. It's early spring. You want to make sure that you give them enough space so they don't swarm. We just inspected this colony behind us and there's no swarm cells in it, but it's packed. We use an 80-50 rule. 80-50 rules is 80% of the colony or 80% of the frames is worked by the colony with more than 50% coverage. Let's dig in and I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so this is a brood frame that we pulled, and in this brood frame you can see we've got a lot of capped brood. It came from the middle of the colony, right? So we pulled it out gently, of course, and then you see the coverage that's on this. You see the bee coverage that's on it. It's more than 50% coverage. It's not like there are bees working it and they're only, 20 to 30 bees just wandering around. They're actually working the brood. They're covering the frame more than 50%. So in that case, you've got more than 8 of the frames being worked. These outside frames are resources. And then you've got more than 50% coverage on most of the frames. It's time to give them more space so they don't swarm. Okay, so we did just catch this one. We just went through it. There are no swarm cells in it, which is awesome because this late in early spring, this one was probably primed to swarm. So unless we missed a swarm cell, which I don't believe we did, we looked through a lot of them and I didn't see any. So this is a good sign. We're going to give them some room, but you need to make a decision what you're doing with this colony. Some colonies, naturally, in this early spring, you're going to want to put supers on. You're going to try to capture that early flow, right? Other times, you want to make bees. So how I make bees here is I take another deep, like you see here, especially if I have drawn comb, right? So if I have drawn comb from a dead out or from a colony that didn't end up using it, we're going to repurpose that, right? So we're going to put this deep right here on top of this colony. No queen included, of course, because you don't want them to just put purely honey up there. But then what will happen is then the queen will have enough room. She'll start to build a bigger brood's nest across both double deeps. Again, we don't manage a lot of double deeps here unless it's early spring, unless we're doing what we're doing, which we're making bees. The good thing is that once we put this box on top of that box and she starts to build out, we can then make splits off of this. And probably like 2 or 3 weeks, we'll come back and we'll make splits off of it because she'll have brood laid up in that top deep as well. Let's go ahead and take a look and put this together and we'll see what we got. Okay, so again, I've got a frame of drawn comb, nice frame, and I'm going to stick it down in the middle to replace the one that I pulled out. And the reason I'm going to do that is so that I can take the frame with brood and put it up in here. That'll drive some of the bees to start to work those combs at the top and not have them just leave it as an empty one. Okay, so we've got all of our frames in the bottom. We're going to take our deep. Now this deep is a unique deep. It is a Endura Hive. So this is a hive body that's wax dipped by Nature's Image Farm. I'll put a link in the description below. We've been integrating these into our apiary this year because we really like the quality of the workmanship by Premier, which is the dovetail joints you see here, the staple and dovetail joints, which makes it very solid. The inside has the propola engraving, right? So in here, you can see the side of it is engraved with a grid or ridges. So it mimics the inside of a tree cavity. Allows the bees to really propolize this up. The more propolis in a colony, the better hygienic the colony. That's the testing that's been done by Greg at Nature's Image, as well as several others over the last 2 or 3 years. And Premier has patented this concept of engraving the inside of these boxes, the propola hive. And then Greg from Nature's Image Farm has taken it one step further and wax dipped it and coined it the Endura Hive, which is really the Cadillac of beehives. So we're really excited about having these in our apiary. Really is going to make the equipment last a lot longer. Let's get this deep put back together, and we'll put it back on top of the hive. All right, so we're going to take our frame of brood. You see beautifully capped brood. A lot of beekeepers will say, hey, that's not a great laying pattern, but I disagree. That's a wonderful laying pattern because she's laid out the cells that are available to her. The bees have packed pollen in the surrounding holes, and where there's pollen, she can't obviously lay, and they're trying to put pollen close to the brood's nest so that they can turn it into bee bread, and then they can feed it to the bees. The bees when they're uncapped before they cap them. So what ends up happening is you end up having this residual pollen that stays behind. And it says, oh, she has a horrible laying pattern. No, she just laid in the cell that she couldn't lay in the cell that had pollen in it. So, you know, it's not always the queen. But for me, a queen that's come over through the winter and that has an entire deep box laid up, for me, is a really good queen. So we're going to continue to leverage her this year and build out more bees. Let's go ahead and close this hive up. Last thing that I do, tighten and center. Teach all in my classes. You don't want wild comb, and it helps keep the propolis from building up between the frames and making them unmanageable, right? So the bees will now come up from the bottom and start to work their way up these top frames, clean them up, and get them, the queen will also move up because, again, naturally heat rises in a colony, and it's easier to maintain a colony with the heat being ambient, you know, close to 93 degrees, and the bees will regulate it, of course, by flapping their wings. But if she moves up to that top box, the heat that's rising in the colony will obviously heat that nest higher, so she'll start to lay the bottom and work her way up the top, and it'll be a giant kind of egg-like brood's nest in here. So we did that about a week or two ago on this one, and the bees are packed in there, so we just supered this one up. That's another way to, you know, help use that resources of bees while you're making bees. That's what we'll do to this one when this one gets packed with brood up top, is we'll put a super on top of it, let the workforce start to build out the honey during our flow here in the spring. And then, of course, we have the ability to make splits. So it's always awesome, that technique that we use to build out bees and then make honey. And if you notice, this is the screened inner cover that we've put on top of our colonies. We do that on a lot of our colonies. The reason why I love screened inner covers is for two reasons. The bees that can then regulate the airflow in the colony and how much airflow they want to circulate through the colony by propolizing up the screen at a certain capacity. I've got screens that are completely propolized. I've got ones that they've only done the edges on. What I really do like about this is I can lift the lid off this colony and peek into it, you know, 5 days later, 6 days later, and see the volume of bees that have moved up to this deep, right? And if they're packed, again, 80%, I can then determine if I need to make a split, I need to add a super. And it's a quick way to peek at your hives. Shoot, you can really peek at them every day if you need to, just by lifting that lid and seeing where the bee volume's at. But I know if there's very little bee volume up there, and I know this was packed, and we got a double deep, well, then there's not time to add space because I can quickly see that there's not a lot of bee volume working up here. That's why I love those screen inner covers. Plus the fact that it's like a great propolis trap. And as a third benefit, these small hive beetles are pushed and quarantined up into the top of this. So a lot of the bees, they'll push them up through the screen and they'll just hang out up here. The small hive beetles, they'll get them out of the hive because that's what they want to do. They'll push them up through the screen, and then I can just lift my lid and take my hive tool and squish, squish, squish the small hive beetles. It's just another way to help mitigate those pests. Let's get this hive closed up, let them get to work. All right, so we have now double deeped our colony, allow them to build brood as it goes up in the new Endura Hive-Body. So that, again, we can super it eventually and then split it and make bees and make honey. Hopefully this helps you out. Again, we don't prescribe anything on our channel. We just like to show you what we do here at Bohemia Apiary. It's been successful for us. Hopefully it's successful for you. If you have questions or comments, just give us a thumbs up, a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because here at Bohemia Apiary, you don't want to miss any one of our videos. We love to share the content, share with you how we manage bees on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, because, well, beekeeping for us is more than a hobby. It's an obsession. Thanks for watching, everyone.